I think that sales right now is what I call a psychological endurance race more than any other job that we have. If you think about it, it's not just, do I have the skills? Do I know sales? Not do I just have the tools? Do I understand the process? More than any other job, it is a psychological endurance race. And nobody gets rejection, and nobody has to handle more negative stuff than a salesperson does.
Welcome to the Emblazers Show, where B2B leaders are igniting revenue. I'm your host, Abby Kerr. And on today's episode, we're talking about stress in the sales profession. Whether you're a sales leader, an aspiring sales leader, or a seller contributing on a team, you probably have your own personal relationship with stress. And it might be a topic that just isn't talked about enough in your organization or with your colleagues. So we really want to open up that discussion today and talk about it from a constructive standpoint, giving you some actual frameworks to help yourself and your team deal with stress, overcome it, and get the best possible performance out of yourself. Our guest today is Dr. Debbie Qaqish. Debbie is a pioneering marketing strategist, a leadership expert, and creator of the Growth Factor method, blending positive psychology with more than 35 years of real-world marketing experience to help leaders thrive under constant pressure. Known as the OG of revenue marketing, a concept she introduced in 2011, she redefined marketing as a measurable driver of business growth and has worked extensively with CMOs and B2B teams to align strategy with revenue outcomes. A certified positive psychology practitioner, award-winning author, dynamic keynote speaker, and longtime MBA instructor at the College of William and Mary, Debbie is a respected thought leader featured in Forbes and MarTech Today, and the host of the weekly LinkedIn live show, Revenue Marketing Raw, where she delivers unfiltered insights on modern marketing leadership. Let's go to the show right now.
Hey, everybody. Today, I'm joined by a dear friend who I've known for many years, and we worked on a lot of things together, and none of those are the things we're going to talk about today, because Dr. Debbie is here to talk about something we really haven't covered on this show at all. We're always kind of trying to push what's next from an activity level, what's next from AI, we're putting a ton of pressure on salespeople, even with our show. I'm going to be honest. Today is more like to take a deep breath. We're going to take a step back. All the things that are happening to salespeople, and the question really becomes, they're not stopping anytime soon. Salespeople still got to perform, but how do they keep the faith? How do they stay confident? How, as leaders who are listening to this, do you continue to motivate people to be focused and productive in a world that is almost unprecedentedly unpredictable? So, Debbie, you're going to help us with that today. Thank you.
I am, and it's my pleasure to be here, Tim.
So you I don't know if you can trademark this. You have a 3M model for how salespeople can keep their cool in the heat of like what we're doing these days in B2B sales. Tell us more about that. I want to get into this with everybody today, again, because I think there's something on the softer side of people management and coaching that we need in a world that's just so aggressively pursuing all these other hard targets and activities.
Well, Tim, you said softer side. See, I don't think this is softer side, but let me share my perspective with you. So, okay, we know that there is not a job on the flipping planet right now that is more challenging than sales. I mean, look at the stats, look at Salesforce research, look at HubSpot, look at what you guys are doing. And 70% of salespeople are overworked. They are overburdened. They are overstressed. They are quitting. Huge turnover. I mean, it is like if an alien came to our planet and we said, here's the most stressful job. Here's what it looks like. I think they would show a picture of a sales organization because, I mean, that's just the world that we live in. So I think it's crazy for us to keep on doing exactly what we're doing the same old way without saying, man, something's got to change in this dynamic because guess what? The pressure is not going away. So what I do is I take concepts and theories and skills from neuroscience and from positive psychology, and I apply them to the professional workforce. And to simplify this, I call these inner skills, and I break it down into 3 categories. There's mindset, there's moments, and there's momentum. And if you're a salesperson, you can fill in the blanks around what each of those mean for you. Our mindset is very simply, it's the story that we're telling ourselves. And guess what? Everything that your brain says is not true. So how you control that narrative is extraordinarily important to your psychological health, and also whether or not you're going to be meeting quota. Moments are, okay, it's me and you right here. Shit has just hit the fan. What are you going to do, right? How do you manage through those kinds of moments? And then momentum. And we all know what momentum is. It's like, how do we take what's happening really good? And how do we fast forward that? And how do we keep that momentum going? So just breaking it down very easily into these 3 areas: mindset, moments, and momentum. And we're going to dig into each of those.
Well, I love a good alliteration as much as the next person. So thank you for that. Already made my day. And so the 3 M's, and we're going to try and dig into each one. Right now, this is something that you would do over the course of an entire day or more, or what? How do you normally handle? I just want to make sure everybody knows that they don't need to turn their podcast to 2x. We're already going to be running at 2x today.
We are already going to be running at 2x. I'm going to see if I could find it. To get ready for today's call, I had a card, and of course it's gone now, a little index card. And I quit writing at 15 skills, right? I just quit writing. So what I want to do today is I want to make it practical. I want to talk about these inner skills. I want to help you recognize what some of them are and how you can put them into practice so that you can do 2 things. Number 1, how do you manage stress better? Because again, it's not going away. How do we become the best surface of stress, that we can possibly be? And number 2, how do we flourish at work? Because who says it has to be miserable all the time? And imagine if we had a sales organization that, number 1, could manage stress, like they had the skills and they knew what to do, and it wasn't always dragging them down. And then if they came to work every day and they were being their best and doing their best, imagine what that world would look like. We're going to paint that picture for you.
All right. Well, let's start. The first M is mindset. So talk to me about mindset and how someone can get their arms around this in a real tangible way.
Mindset is a very tricky thing, and I should have come up with a couple of books for you guys to go read, but think about the best salesperson you've ever seen. Let's think about that guy or that gal, okay? It's probably going to be a woman, but, think about the best salesperson you've ever seen. And doesn't it just seem like it just always rolls off their back? Doesn't it always seem like they're the most positive person in the room? Doesn't it always seem like they're always looking forward and they always talk in terms of possibilities and new ways to do things? Because that is a great description of mindset. And mindset is one of the most powerful things that you have as an individual that will determine not just your performance, but how much you love what you're doing while you're doing it as well. And again, guys, you get up every day, and if your brain's telling you, God bless America, I suck at this. I had a crappy quarter. I'm going to get fired. And if you're thinking all of these negative thoughts, your thinking becomes more narrow and more narrow and more narrow. And so possibilities are just, off to the side. So there's a couple of things that we can do to help mindset. Okay. And one of those things that I want to talk about is a skill called reframing. And Tim, have you ever heard of this skill of reframing?
I've heard it in the context of how to handle objections from a customer. So you have an emotional reframe or a metaphorical reframe or other reframing tools. So I suppose an objection from a customer and reframing it, if you're getting an objection from yourself, you can reframe it as well.
It is very much that. And reframing is an incredibly powerful skill to have. I think that sales right now is what I call a psychological endurance race more than any other job that we have. If you think about it, it's not just do I have the skills do I know sales? Do I just have the tools? Do I understand the process? More than any other job, it is a psychological endurance race. And nobody gets rejection, and nobody has to handle more negative stuff than a salesperson does. So let's talk about reframing. Reframing is when you take that mindset from threat to possibility, right? And I gave the example earlier. I had a really crappy quarter. I just lost that sale. They're changing my comp, and I'm going to be losing a lot of money. Now, you got two choices. Put on your big boy, your big girl pants. When I say this, you've got two choices. You can spiral down, just spiral, spiral, spiral. Woe is me, woe is me. Or you can say, you know what, Debbie? I lost that deal. What can I learn from that? What could I do differently? And if you reflect on the best salespeople, this is something that they do, whether they've trained themselves to do it or whether their mindset is already coded to act like that. The fact is that you can also train your mind. You can code your mind to have that same kind of reaction. So, okay, sit there for a minute and say, crap, I lost that deal. But then say, okay, all right, new day. What can I learn from this? What can I do different? Because when you start thinking more in the positive, first of all, you are getting into your cerebral cortex. And so your thinking brain, your planning brain, your creative brain, you're refiring that all up. And so it just allows you to have more and bigger possibilities. So reframing is one of those techniques that is extraordinarily powerful. And you can do it anywhere and you can do it anytime. For example, one of my reframes, because again, I'm pretty honest. I get up every day. I'm a lifelong sufferer of depression, and I have good days and I have bad days. But when I get up every day, I reframe my day. I'm going to be my best today. I'm going to show up at my best today. So that is my constant reframe. And you can do that in sales situations. You can do it in personal situations. But reframing and the intent behind doing the reframing and taking a minute at your desk to do the reframe is a very, very powerful skill that moves you from threat to possibilities.
I love that. Mindset. I mean, mindset's not a new word. Mindset is something that we hear about. You have to have the right mindset. You got to have positive attitude. You got to attitude over this. I mean, but I love how you framed it for us in the idea of reframing and take that thought captive and pivot it. I love that. So we've done that where we've got mindset. Your second point you said is moments. So talk to me about now how you move from mindset to moments and take more action.
Once we've fixed our mindset, right? And we've gone from a negative to a positive place in the mindset. And again, neurologically speaking, that opens you up to many more possibilities and many, many more ideas around what you can do differently the next time. Moments are, what can I do right now to make a difference? And think about, I want to put this in two areas to think about. When you're in a high stress situation, your thinking just kind of shuts down. You just kind of go on autopilot. You're using what we call that lizard brain. It's fight or fright or whatever all those F's are. When you're in that situation, which we can be at any time of the day as a salesperson, you're just not doing your best thinking. So here's a trick that I have found that is extraordinarily helpful. And it's all about control. So if our mindset is still spiraling, and even if we've got it back to even, and then something else happens in that moment, like before we send that nasty email or before we go in and want to have a 101 with our manager about what they said, or before you want to call that client and say, why the hell didn't I get that deal, right? You need to think about your sense of control, what you do have control over and what you don't have control over. This is so simple and so neurologically effective. Just take a blank piece of paper and on the left side, put what I have control over. And on the right side, put what I don't have control over. We waste so much time and energy spiraling around things we have zero control over. If your comp plan gets changed, the only thing you have control over is go find another job, right? But other than that, you've got to live with it. If you lose a deal, you can't go back and take a hit out on the customer. It's just not going to work like that, right? So if you just take a moment and say, what is absolutely, totally within my control right now, and write those things down, and then vice versa, what is out of my control? It just helps you, again, use that prefrontal cortex, not that lizard brain that says, okay, I'm a thinking human being and I can make good decisions. And I also want to move forward with this. I don't want to stay stuck in this paralyzed state, right? So sometimes just taking a minute to do here's what I have control over. Here's what I don't have control over. Okay. The second thing that you can do when you're in that moment is what I call the 3 R's. And the 3 R's are recognize, your reset, and your response. And this is 100% from neuroscience. This is the way our brains work. Okay. Again, before you send that email, sit down and say, okay, Debbie, what's really going on right now? Just take a minute and recognize I am pissed beyond belief right now because XYZ has happened in my organization, right? I'm feeling threatened. I'm feeling like my feet have been cut out from underneath me. I feel like, I'm just kind of powerless in this. So let's just recognize it for what it is. Okay. That's number 1. That is your first R, which is the recognize. The next thing is to reset. And guys, when they tell you to put your head between your legs when you have a panic attack, did you know that breathing, simple breathing is the only way you can physically reset what's going on in your system? It is the only way you can say your system's going haywire. No, danger, Will Robinson. Then a couple of deep breathing and you're back in control. You literally take your sympathetic nervous system and you don't no longer have control into your parasympathetic nervous system. So sometimes, just the deep breathing. So slow that breathing down, take some good deep breaths, count to 60 seconds, and then make your response. Okay. So when we think about those moments that can, that just kind of stick with us. Number 1, these 3 R's help you intentionally think about what the heck's going on, gives you a way to calm your nervous system down so you can begin rational thinking again and your horizons broaden again. So when you go into that meeting or you send off that email, you're in a very different place.
I'm going to add a 4th R. At least my wife did. When things got stressful, she would say reflexology is helpful, and I'd have to do a foot massage.
I'm huge into reflexology, so yes, it is.
No. So it turns out there's something to that. It wasn't just a free foot massage. It was just my contribution to de-stressing was to shut up and start squeezing. So I'd like that idea of the control list versus the out of control list. What in the sales environment do you generally see makes the list of things you control and the things you should let go, I guess, is one way to think about it. What might be some common ones that we got to get into the right buckets?
First of all, I will say that for a lot of salespeople that I've done this activity with, they're kind of like, wow. I mean, it can be a very eye-opening exercise for them because they will spend days worrying about something they have zero control over. And when you write it down, you instantly see, wow, that I have no control over that. But look at all these things I do have control over. And the reason this is powerful is when you focus on the things that you have control over, you can then take action. And that forward momentum is what gets you to the better place for better thinking, more clarity, better decision making. Things out of control are going to be quotas, reorganizations, what technology we use. It's not so much, sometimes I lost a deal will be on there and sometimes it won't be on there. And that's also very interesting when a salesperson takes zero accountability for losing a deal or not losing a deal. So that's always a really, really interesting conversation as well. but it's typically more organizational things that are out of their control. And again, when they do this, they're always amazed at how many things they do have in their control. And I say, just pick one. And that just activates this energy that they're all of a sudden, they're now bouncing forward instead of in this death spiral of, well, damn, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that about winning and losing a deal. What is or isn't within my control. I think that naturally when we ask salespeople to use a drop-down menu and say, why did you win that deal? Why did you lose that deal? Notoriously, if we're really honest, when we win the deal, it's like, when I lost the deal, the product wasn't right, the pricing wasn't right, the politics weren't right. When we survey using win-loss analysis and look at what the buyer identifies as being meaningful to their decision, it's often stuff within the seller's control. But knowing you can control it means you can do something about it. I feel like that's part of it, is that identifying what you control means you can do something different and better tomorrow. And to your point, learn from it. But you also can name it and to your point, claim it and go after that thing. So that's why you did let me say soft skills or soft.
I didn't let you say soft skills. These are fierce skills. These are skills that we do not teach in corporate America today. This is the most needed skill set we have. And this whole idea of bringing positive psychology and neuroscience, these inner skills, into corporate America, it's a big deal right now because it works.
So you believe these are not just like I'm born with them. These can be nurtured and trained.
These are all trainable, 100% trainable skills.
What if your next big revenue move didn't come from a blog post or a cold LinkedIn scroll, but from a real conversation with leaders who've been there?
As the world of sales is constantly evolving and constantly changing, I think it's even more critical to get together with people to understand how are they helping to solve some of the problems that our buyers have today.
Meet Emblaze, a community of sharp B2B minds, CROs, CSOs, rising stars, sharing what's actually working in sales, enablement, and customer growth.
We always find a lot of value in the partnerships that we're able to form with some of the other great organizations that are part of the team here. And personally, I love the opportunity to connect with my peer group outside of other organizations and learn from them and try to figure out if there's things that they're doing that we can pull into our organization and benefit from.
Join a monthly forum, dig into science-backed strategy, and get insight you won't find in your feed. Start your Emblaze journey today at emblazegrowth.com.
So this is a lot of fun, but also real practical. This is what I love about everything you've said is these things are within our grasp that we can do. This is not like either I am or I am not this person. These are things that we can practically do. So speaking of doing, your third M is momentum. So we did mindset. Remind me of the three again.
Mindset, moments, and now we're doing momentum.
Let's talk about that. How do I put that into practice?
In this category, I want to talk about two skills that I think are really, really very important. And momentum can be momentum through a stressful situation. But momentum, you begin to move from the negative really into the positive. So we're going to talk a little bit more about flourishing, right? And flourishing is just the science of human performance. That's basically what it is. It's the science of human performance. And when I think about flourishing, there are two things I wanted to talk about for salespeople. And the first is purpose. So think back to the win-loss analysis that you've done. How many have you done by now? Like 2,347, Tim, something like that?
Yeah, it's 150,000, but I used to think it was a big number till you said that, but yeah.
And like how often the client would say it did have something to do with the salesperson. And it wasn't necessarily a tactic. Maybe it was kind of something that they might have had a little bit of a hard time identifying, but maybe it was just kind of like the sense of how they were working together. And so that's why I'm going to talk about purpose. Now, I wear a bracelet every day and it says lead with purpose, right? And purpose is why the hell you get out of bed every day. That is your purpose. Why do you get up and get out of bed every day? What really fills you and completes you when it comes to being in sales. For me in sales, it was seeing the transformation at the client, right? It was seeing a marketing organization use technology in a new way so that they weren't that pens and mugs department anymore. They became, part of the revenue team, right? So purpose is something that when I talk to salespeople, purpose-driven salespeople are those salespeople who care about the clients. They care about the story. They care about the value that they're creating within that client environment, right? And the more as a salesperson you can attach to purpose, the more powerful you become as an ally when you are working, because they see it, they feel it, they sense it. I was working with a workshop, it was late last year, and this was a mixed group. I had some marketing people in there and I had salespeople in there. And I told them, okay, you've got 5 minutes to write down your purpose statement. And you would have thought I just asked them to, start flying. They just like, what purpose? What do you mean my purpose? What do you mean my purpose? But I gave them 5 minutes to write their purpose. And then we talked about it. And then I gave them another 5 minutes to write their purpose. And it was amazing what these purpose statements came up with. Taking the time to connect to something bigger than a quota, bigger than a dollar. Those are the salespeople who are legendary. Those are the salespeople who have influence and who have clout and who have relationships with their clients, right? And all of our clients want that today more than they ever have. They want an authentic relationship. So take a minute, write down what your purpose is. My best and highest use. My purpose is to do this because, and here's what I get from it. Just fill out that statement. Connect to something bigger than yourself. When brands do that, they do incredible. When people do that, they do incredible. And it's the exact same thing with sales. So that's the first thing that I would say about purpose.
Here's a phrase that I hear too often stated as a truism, and it just grinds me. It just frays my nerves when they are like, salespeople are coin operated. And I'm like, then don't be a salesperson. Because everything I hear from buyers is that they need help in high stakes, critical decisions that are boundary spanners in their company. It's not just going to be, I'm selling a book or a phone or a car. This is major impact. That's when they need the human in the loop. They're like, AI is great for all this research, but eventually I make a complex, high stakes decision and I need to feel trust. I need to feel confident. I need to feel like guidance, and all these things. And that you don't deliver that if you're coin operated.
You don't. And again, you knowing your purpose as a salesperson, when you show up every day, it becomes the lens that colors everything that you do. And your clients see this and they feel it. And the word you used was trust, which I absolutely positively agree with. The second thing I want to talk about real quick with these things that I call character strengths. Now, salespeople are probably the most overassessed group of anybody in corporate America right now. But identifying your character strengths is not an assessment. It's not comparing you. It's not putting you in a category. It's not talking about your style or your type. It's who you are when you are at your best. For example, my top 3 character strengths are bravery. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. And if I didn't do this every day, I would be miserable. It is love of excellence. I saw the Blue Angels fly earlier this week. We just take our boat out because we're right here and we watch them do all of their practice flights. And I've got this whole article that I've written about excellence, where I love excellence in any form. And then finally creativity, but the creativity is not like I can draw. It's really more of a business, creating something from nothing kind of creativity, right? And when I come to work every day, if I can't bring these character traits that I have forward, I am miserable, absolutely miserable. So again, it's not like any other assessment that you've ever done. These are universal character traits. You can do them for free at viaorganization.com. And it's just such a great way to understand what makes you happy, what drives you when you're in the flow, when you're at your best. What are those character traits? And then saying, how am I using these at work? And if you have zero chance to use them at work, it could be the wrong company for you, right? So I think that when we take a look at this area of momentum, two very simple things is, number one, taking a look at those character traits. And number two, purpose and your character. Why do you come to work every day? And how do you attach meaning to that so your clients can feel it, see it, touch it? And who are you when you're at your best? And can you bring that forward and be that person at work every day? Those are the two things that I would say for momentum.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, they're inextricably linked too, right? I mean, your purpose is fueled and you get energy if you can leverage your character strengths.
These things are so energy creating. That's another whole topic. We're going to talk about energy suckers, right? Versus energy givers, right? I have a whole workshop just on energy, right? Because it's true. And, as a salesperson, man, you've got to be up. You've got to come. You've got to bring it, right? Everybody brings it in a different way. But if you can find your flow, if you can find your creativity, if you can use your purpose, and if you can use, what you're really best at and bring that every day, your clients will see the biggest difference between you and the 99 other salespeople that they've run into this year.
So, Debbie, to wrap this up, so I appreciate here's what I really appreciate. You've got a day plus worth of material that you take people through, and you just did it in like 30 minutes. And so thank you for helping us grab a few nuggets along the way in terms of mindset, moments, and momentum. You also are willing to give our listeners a tool. So we're going to put in the show note. Tell me a little bit about the reset tool.
It's a 10-minute reset. Remember how we talked about recognize, reset, and respond? It's just a little card deck, digital, and it just helps you, before you hit send on that email or go into that meeting or take that phone call. It's just a reset to kind of get you regulated and get you in the game in a more positive way than coming from a negative place where things might blow up.
And I appreciate that as not just being something that affects you as a seller. It affects you as a significant other. It affects you as a parent or whatever your various roles are. These are great tools for all that. But to your point earlier, I don't think anybody in any particular career is under the kind of specific stress because of all the people you have to orchestrate and be on for. You got to be on. There's just a unique pressure with sales. And so we got to be more mindful of these tools than maybe a lot of other professions.
Perhaps another show, but AI is rewriting how work gets done. What an organizational model looks like, what sales looks like, what everything looks like. And I mean, it will be totally, totally upended. And another 2 years from now, sales is going to look very, very, very different from what it looks right now. But in the meantime, if you want to manage stress better, and if you want to flourish and find your flow and be the best that you can be, these are some quick skills that you could put to practice.
So we need another show, and we will dig into that. But I think what we talked about today is kind of transcendent relative to any of the things that are happening below, relative to AI and all of these other items. These are ways to cope regardless of where all that goes. So thank you, Debbie. Great to see you again. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for watching another great episode of the Emblazers Show. Thank you to our guest, Dr. Debbie Qaqish, and thank you, Tim. And thank you, most of all, for listening or watching the Emblazers Show on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your network. And check out what Emblaze membership is all about at corporatevisions.com/community. We'll see you next time.